It's been a long HR career. I know that for you because so many of you tell me, Christie, oh my gosh, why can't I get buy-in? Why won't they let me send surveys? And why won't they listen to me? And I say, I know, buddy. There's nothing wrong with you. We're going to get you better at explaining what you're there for and why you are the critical revenue driver for your business because you're taking care of the revenue drivers, which are the people. I wanted to come up with some interview questions to keep you from accidentally joining another toxic company with a very toxic CEO that's not going to let you do your thing. I created a list of interview questions for you to figure out, is this CEO even remotely willing or curious to consider that the people, the employees, are the revenue drivers and the thing that they need to pay attention to and, partner with me on so that they can get the revenue they want. Like, are they open at all to the concept that the golden rule is not dead? And if we, do things a certain way, I could be a very impactful leader for them in a good way. But if they're not open to partnering with you, then these questions are a way to save your sanity so that you don't burn out, make yourself crazy, and wonder what's wrong with you, that you can't drive engagement. But it's because certain executives, you just can't change them that much, and that's not your job. And you don't want to change people. You want people to be open to changing their mind once they hear your perspective, because you're mastering the art of influence. But there will be times when you need to influence your executive, yes. But it shouldn't be absolutely every single positively day over absolutely everything to where you just shut down because they don't get it. And they're chasing their tail trying to get the revenue. And you're like, will you stop and just let me send employee surveys, because that's how you're going to get to the revenue. You're not going to do it yourself by pushing everybody. I also made a silly little LinkedIn video that I'll link out to. I really hope you watch it because I really enjoyed making it. I did a little satire between Julie and Tom. Julie and Tom are the tale as old as time HR leader and CEO who don't get each other, but it's funny because they're saying the same thing. They're just misunderstanding each other. But this time Julie's dodging a bullet because she has a terrible interview and she's able to sniff out right away, this is not a company where I'm going to be able to thrive. Therefore, it's there's no way I'm going to put my sanity on the line to work with you. So the type of questions you want to ask your CEO that you would be working for, or maybe you're interviewing with the CHRO, are a combination. It depends on if you're meeting with them right away. But if they're one of your first touch points, a quick little bluff that you would either want to ask in the beginning or maybe mid-conversation somewhere else, but just see. By the way, how many employees do you have? And sure, you could look that up on LinkedIn. Sure, they might think you didn't do your due diligence, but that's a very normal question to ask. And if they hesitate or say something about up roughly 800, it's okay, roughly 800 or 820, 890, that's two totally different sizes. Or if they're roughly 40 and they don't really know and it's a smaller company, that's where I have concerns. You don't need to know everyone's social security number and middle name and be best friends with everyone. But anytime I saw an executive who didn't have a handle on how many employees they had, it was like working with a dog that was very resistant to training. Think about your most stubborn breed of dog and you're like, will you please sit down? And they're like, no. If an executive doesn't know at all how many employees they have, or if they're it's in our database, be like, that's like asking someone, how many children do you have? And they're like, I don't know. You want to build trust. So you want to ask them positive. You don't want to grill them right away. So you want to ask them, why are you passionate about working at this or leading this organization? You want to appeal to their ego a little bit, make them feel important so that you can build enough trust so that you're like, okay, you're so great as a leader. I love that for you. And then you rip open the spare closet to be like, what are all these spare towels? And these are those questions after you've built trust. Ask them when the last time was that they sent an employee survey. And maybe they're hiring you because they need help with that. But if they say any combination of we don't send surveys or never is a yellow flag, but are you open to it now? Or We sent surveys, but we got a bunch of negative feedback and it didn't really do what we thought it would. It just stirred up a bunch of chaos. And like, that was very distracting. Like, ooh, this is your chance to talk to them and show them your revenue chops. I have a revenue cheat sheet in the Engagement Academy community. I'll link out to it. You can say like, oh, I totally get it. I know negative feedback can seem so distracting from the productivity and the revenue and, growing the business. But what I've loved to see in the past is that exact negative employee feedback are the answers to what would better serve our customers and help our teams be more productive and therefore make the company more money. It's been really cool in my career to see that go well. Even if that's not true, just say that and then call me, I'll help you, or take my training. Other questions you should ask are, how seriously do you take negative employee feedback? Because if it's like, oh, we have an open door policy, or like, I never look at the survey responses, you should be looking for signs that they see feedback as a growth tool and not something to be fearful of. You should be looking for an executive who's willing to let their ego down a little bit to take feedback from their actual workforce, because that means they'll take feedback from you. You could ask them their current turnover rate. They're probably not going to have any idea. And they're going to say, do you know how to calculate that? We don't know. We should probably know that. And you say, yeah, that's what I would love to bring to those key executive meetings. There's a lot of storytelling in that kind of data. And it's okay that you don't know. That is something I know how to calculate. It's very foundational to making sure that as we scale, as we grow, as the company roadmap changes and evolves, turnover tells us a very important aspect. When you layer it on with revenue and customer churn and ENPS, your turnover can tell a very compelling story that gives you insights to help you make better business decisions, whatever, yada, yada. And if they don't know their turnover rate, that is okay. But I would follow it up with, well, in your opinion, what are some key themes as to why people choose to leave the organization? And if you're sitting here listening to these questions and you're like, Christie, I could never. Well, I know, but this is about stepping into your power. If you have an executive who will not answer these for you or makes you feel uncomfortable for asking them, like the audacity. If you're met with anything other than excitement or curiosity, or calm, good answers, that's not the company for you. A good executive who is of sound mind and reason, that understands the people drive the revenue, who's at least even remotely open to that idea, will love that you're asking these questions. And you can, if they hesitate, you can say, by the way, every organization struggles with this. The global workforce is disengaged, and it has been for 4 decades. Oh man, you could spit some Gallup research, really seem like you know your stuff, because you do. The main thing that holds organizations back is a disengaged workforce. So since every company's dealing with turnover, any good HR leader would say, coming into this, what are the key themes that you see? And if they're like, I don't know, do you want a CEO who doesn't really think about why their employees leave? Sure, you could argue they don't have time for that. At a certain size, they do, less than 100 employees. But see if you can figure out, like, would you be willing to partner with me as I identify these themes on making optimizations to the employee experience so that our best people don't quit? That's very expensive for a business. You can say it costs 2 times someone's salary to replace them. Did you know that? That's a lot of money. It's a lot of money you don't think about factoring in when someone leaves. You just replace them. But there's recruiting cost. There's lost knowledge. There's a dip in morale. All of that, lack of productivity, and the time it takes for someone to get up to speed, which is at least 3 to 6 months, that's expensive. So are you interested in partnering with me on solving for that? I will go solve for it, but I need you to understand that that is something I would be taking a big interest in. So what thoughts do you have on it as it is right now? Their answers could be anything. I once had a very lovely CEO. A little bit delulu, but when I asked this question, what are the key themes on why you think your people leave the business? They said, we're really proud of this. The people who leave our organization leave for better opportunities. And I was like, say it again, but slower. I love this for you. That's not at all what I said. I came to find out that the employee life cycle was about 18 months, and people would leave to go work at bigger organizations. I didn't feel that 18 months was as healthy as it could be. That's a quick turnaround for someone to quickly add value and then leave. That's not the healthiest. But I love their perspective. And I said, well, let's turn this into a company that people consider a better opportunity. And they said, okay, that's a good idea. I'm like, I know. That's why I want to work with you. Because, your executives have gaps. They don't mean to. They don't mean to be so revenue obsessed, but, that's their job. They need to keep the business on track. But what you're sussing out for is, how much do you think that you can just storm around in your castle and bully and intimidate and be avoidant to everyone, or just be like, Delulu, whatever, we're not profitable this month again. I've seen it all. You're trying to figure out, how bad is that unfolding right now? Or is this person someone who seems like your partner in disengagement crime? They're not going to be spending all day, every day with you, but you need to be able to feel out like, do I feel like I could disagree with this person respectfully? I think another good question to ask to that point is, can you tell me about a time that one of the executives changed your mind on something? That's a really easy way to say, like, do you bite people's heads off when they don't agree with you? Do you want yes people? Do you want people who are scared of you? Do you like it that way? Because that's not me. Some other business-related questions, like metric questions you could ask them that they will know is, what are your key revenue KPIs and are they on track? So they're going to start dropping things like MRR and CAC. That's monthly recurring revenue, cost to acquire a customer. They're going to talk about pipeline, which is like people who haven't bought your product yet. All of this is in my revenue cheat sheet where I teach you this, but you're going to want to make very close mental note of those things or write them down. Those are what your CEO cares about. Those are indicators of how are the people doing. That's basically money metrics. And remember, that's okay. That's their job. But when you ask them, and are you on track? If they say like, oh, that's private information, you can say, I don't need to know what the numbers are, but are you on track to hit those goals? And if you get a weird runaround answer, they're not. I would be cautious to be like, they're hiding something. Most companies are not on track to hit their KPIs, but you should be looking for someone who's like, these are our metrics. We missed last quarter. It was a tough board meeting. We kind of got grilled. And that's when we realized we needed to invest in, a leader like you. But if someone's like, oh, all these metrics, and like, I'm not going to tell you if we're on track, you don't need to worry about that. Like, no. That person is going to be awful to work with. And they're going to make you crazy because they're going to be so upset that they're missing those metrics and they're not going to bring you into the conversation to talk about the people who drive those metrics. And I'll leave you with this last question, and I'll put the template of all the questions. There's a bunch more, but I just picked a few to talk about. The last one here is, how do you ensure managers align with your company culture? And there's a few things you're poking around here. You're trying to figure out if they rattle off your company values. Most companies don't know their values or they don't live by them, and they're a scaffolding for your employees to make decisions about how to treat each other and how to get the work done. So if they don't really mention values here, or any kind of, what you're trying to also find out is, do you train your managers? Which you can ask, and drop the stat. Say 70% of disengagement is driven by managers. Did you know that? It's very avoidable. Managers don't often know or are equipped to have soft skills and lead up very productive, healthy functioning teams. So do you train your managers, or how do you ensure that they align with your culture? And I would hope the answer here is probably something like, we really need to get better at that. Or if you hear anything like, oh, that's not a focus, we don't do that, that's going to be a lot of mind changing. See if you can get them to see that that is something you would pursue because you must. Managers are an extension of you, so they can do so much more on behalf of you to drive engagement when you're training them in your monthly manager workshops. If your CEO doesn't take any interest in that or gives you some kind of word soup answer, just ask them, how often do you train your managers? And if they're like, train them on what? Be like, exactly, got it, noted. But the answer to that is, training them on what employees say is not great about working on their teams. So, I believe I have a philosophy in a manager survey. And the goal there is to figure out, oh, there's too many meetings, or my manager isn't clear on deadlines, or our team doesn't really feel close. We need feedback from employee surveys to then go to our managers and say, hey guys, it's not your fault. You don't know what you don't know. But employees are saying they're not really feeling connected. So we're going to talk about the art of a proper one-on-one. so that you make sure at least you are creating moments of connection for each of your team members. Of course, managers need training, but you don't need to make it up. You do it based on what your employees say in the surveys. Isn't that cool? Isn't that neat? Man, it's almost like I believe in this so much, I quit everything so I could talk about it all the time. Those were your quick preview questions of how to make sure you don't work for a toxic CEO. Check out the LinkedIn video in the show notes. I will leave you a template because I love you in the show notes or in the little description of this YouTube video. I don't give out all my templates. Everything's in Engagement Academy in chronological order against the only training that you can take on how driving engagement works. But I'll give you little snippets here and there because I want you to be successful. But if you want the whole experience, come join us in Engagement Academy, where you can talk to me and all your new smart HR friends who are thinking about things differently. In office hours, we're talking, there's these open discussion forums, and you can have access to all of these guides and scripts and cheat sheets, and never again feel like you don't know the right answers to driving engagement, because you'll know how it works. Okay, until next time, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And I will see you next week. Bye.